Moments after entering the courtroom, Ohio school shooter T.J. Lane took off his shirt. Underneath was a T-shirt with the word "killer" handwritten on it.
The walls of courtrooms around the world have witnessed some of the craziest reactions, behaviors, and outbursts you've ever seen. In this video, we bring you some of the most shocking moments ever witnessed in all of courtroom history.
That courtroom scuffle marked the end to a murder case that began in the parking lot of this apartment complex.
Yelling profanities in the courtroom will always be classified as a shocking behavior to exhibit, no matter the situation. However, Adrian Dunn considered it to be good enough after he was given the verdict. The clip you just saw is of Adrian Dunn. He faced murder charges in San Antonio in 2012. Adrian was an ex-convict who found himself in the courthouse once more for shooting and killing Rakeem Tarek Charles. According to the police, Adrian shot Rakeem in the back once in an apartment parking lot after a deal went wrong between them on July 16, 2012. Killing someone else is already a horrible thing to do, but to make matters worse, this wasn't Adrian's first rodeo. During his trial, a prosecutor named Nicole Phillips told the jury that he had been arrested and sent to prison twice after he murdered Rakeem. Before that, Adrian had also committed another shooting before he killed Rakeem. The prosecutors who were involved in the trial petitioned the jury to give the maximum sentence to Adrian because not only did he have a long history of crime and violence, but he also showed no remorse for his actions. Another prosecutor, Jason Goss, can be seen holding the hand of the victim's parents while arguing to the jury that Adrian should be sentenced to life in prison, as it was necessary to prevent something like that from ever happening again. Killing someone is horrible, and not showing remorse for taking another person's life makes everything even worse. Anybody should do their best not to add to their crimes after this one. Except Adrian's reactions showed that he regretted nothing. During the trial, Adrian's reactions and behaviors were likened to those of someone who was bored of being in a classroom. He showed no remorse and kept moving and squirming around in his seat with an unrepentant and nonchalant look on his face.
Don't give Adrian a chance to go into prison and try to make something of himself so that when he gets out, if he ever gets out, he can try to be an asset to our community.
Despite his attorney's argument, the jury deliberated for 2 hours before they agreed that the appropriate sentence for Adrian was life in prison. As the jury's decision was read out, Adrian began to wrestle with several Bexar County Sheriff's deputies who were attempting to escort him outside the courtroom. Adrian's reaction was uncalled for and very disrespectful to the memory of his victim and their parents, but compared to what T.J. Lane, the next convict in our list, did, you could call Adrian's reaction a walk in the park.
Moments after entering the courtroom, Ohio school shooter T.J. Lane took off his shirt. Underneath was a T-shirt with the word "killer" handwritten on it.
On the morning of the 26th of February, 2012, 6 students were shot in the cafeteria of Chardon High School in Ohio. 3 of them ended up dead with 2 others hospitalized, one of which ended up permanently paralyzed. The perpetrator, 17-year-old sophomore Thomas T.J. Lane III. Lane was a former student of Chardon High who had switched to Lake Academy Alternative School for special students, but used the same bus as most of the victims. At around 7:30 a.m. local time, Lane stood up in the Chardon High School cafeteria and began shooting toward 5 male students at a table with a .22 caliber handgun. And as he fled while being chased by a couple of teachers, he shot at another victim, this time a female student. Lane was eventually identified and arrested by police outside the school near his car, which was parked close by. Of his 6 victims, 3 managed to survive, including 17-year-old Nick Walsack, who was shot several times, but the other 3 weren't so lucky. According to student witnesses, Lane had something of a rivalry with one of the victims, Russell King Jr., because he had recently begun dating Lane's ex-girlfriend. Since Lane was under the age of 18 and not formally charged as an adult, he was considered by the law as a juvenile, and a detention hearing rather than a trial was held for him on the 28th of February, 2012. Lane apparently had a history of juvenile delinquency, and after his arrest, the presiding judge allowed the release of his juvenile records to the press. The records revealed that Lane had been arrested twice in December 2009, once for assisting an assault on his uncle and the other for committing an assault himself. Prosecutors indicated that they wanted Lane charged as an adult, and eventually on the 1st of March 2012, he was formally charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of aggravated attempted murder, and 1 count of felonious assault. However, the judge postponed the decision for Lane to get a mental competency evaluation. Lane was finally indicted on all 6 charges that June, and months later, on the 26th of February 2013, the 1-year anniversary of the shootings, Lane pled guilty to the charges with his sentencing hearing date set for the 19th of March 2013. However, on the day of his sentencing, Lane's behavior would send shockwaves throughout the court. After he entered the courtroom, he removed his dress shirt to reveal a white t-shirt which had the word "killer" handwritten across the front. And not only that, Lane also smiled and smirked at the judge and the victims' families throughout the hearing. Lane was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. But after being sentenced, Lane would once again shock the courtroom. This time, he uttered a quite graphic statement about the murder of his victims to their families before hitting them with the F word and throwing up a middle finger to the attendees.
In Ohio, a teenager convicted of a high school shooting that killed 3 students is back in custody after daring escape overnight. TJ Lane climbed a prison fence last night with 2 prison inmates.
The story of Thomas Lane wasn't over, however, and on the 11th of September 2014, he escaped from the Allen Correctional Institution, along with 2 other inmates using a makeshift ladder. Lane was eventually captured near the woods a day later and then transferred to the Ohio State Supermax Penitentiary. Today, Lane spends his days behind bars at the Southern Ohio Maximum Security Correctional Facility and will probably be there for the rest of his life. Disrespecting the victims and their families in a way that has never been seen will be the exclusive title of TJ Lane, but a violent reaction from Jaleel Hoskins is violent enough to make it onto our list. On March 19, 2013, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a 26-year-old woman and mother of 5 named Latrice Mays was declared missing. Less than 2 months later, the police in Grand Rapids had reason to believe that her body had been burned and dumped in a landfill after her murderer put it in a dumpster. The murderer in question turned out to be her boyfriend, 25-year-old Jaleel Hoskins. Latrice Mays' family wanted to know her whereabouts, and attempts to find her soon became a nationwide search. At first, Hoskins kept on insisting that he knew nothing about her disappearance and had nothing to do with her death. He was interviewed by a TV reporter 24 hours after he was arrested and answered questions that marked the beginning of a trying period for Mays' family.
I wouldn't, like I say, at this point in time, I wouldn't even say a murder because, like I say, I mean, to everyone's knowledge, no, I have nothing. I have nothing. I have nothing. I have nothing to do with the murder. I have nothing to do with the disappearance.
It didn't take long before Hoskins changed his story about knowing nothing about the murder of Mays after he saw the level of evidence and testimonials that pointed to his involvement. Hoskins' cousin testified to the court that Hoskins had told him that he choked her before wrapping her body in a blanket he had taken from her daughter's room.
He just told me that he put her in a garbage can.
In the what?
Garbage can.
Hoskins' cousin was also charged with perjury because he had lied before he confessed to doing so. He claimed to have done so to protect his cousin. Hoskins was supposed to face assault charges after he stabbed the man who is the father of 2 of Mays' children. He had stabbed him outside a bar and allegedly killed Mays because he thought she was going to go to the police. One of Hoskins' friends said that Hoskins had asked him for help to dump Mays' body because he couldn't carry her himself.
I need some help. I can't carry her by myself.
Another crucial piece of the evidence was a police dash cam picking up audio when the said police officer responded to a call from the home where Mays was last seen. The call had claimed that Hoskins was abusing Mays and that she needed help.
You ride with a friend? I can take you to a shelter, but I can't force you to leave.
When Hoskins realized that there was overwhelming evidence against him, he switched up his story and pleaded guilty to the murder of Latrice Mays. He delivered an emotional speech as he wept while he was confessing to what he did to Mays. He also admitted to tampering with evidence. He took Mays' life because he thought that Mays was going to report him to the police after she reported domestic abuse earlier that day. Initially, Hoskins was charged with open murder, which usually resulted in life in prison without any possibility of parole. The reason Mays cooperated was because she feared losing custody of the children she had with Hoskins if she reported him for an assault. Hoskins was eventually sentenced to 50 to 100 years in prison for murder, habitual crime, perjury, and tampering with evidence. Hoskins' reaction caused the courtroom to erupt into chaos like you've never seen before. After he was read his sentence, Hoskins reacted violently by throwing the podium towards the judge before he was escorted out. He was seen with his eyes bulging with fury. This reaction caused a struggle between Mays' and Hoskins' families, where they began to yell at each other as Hoskins was led to where he would serve his sentence. In the history of throwing things at people, nothing is going to prepare you for what Ricky Hand had in hand for the members of the courtroom on the day of his sentencing.
You just gave him 40 years. Well, guess what? Sir, let's say
Showing up to receive sentencing for a previous crime should have been all that Ricky Hand got in the courtroom the day of his sentencing, not adding more years to them. In Springfield, Ohio, 46-year-old Ricky Hand was being sentenced for multiple robberies committed over a significant period of time. He had robbed multiple convenience stores at night where he made away with money and other things. Ricky had committed up to 30 robberies and had been arrested for some of them. He was out on parole when he committed the one that put him back in the courtroom. He had attempted to rob John's drive-thru one night. The store owner was closing for the night, oblivious to the fact that an armed Ricky Hand was lurking around the building, waiting for his opportunity to strike. However, as Ricky made his way to the door, the store owner was waiting for him, armed as well, and began to fire at Ricky to scare him off.
This is John's drive-thru, West Main Street. A guy just tried to rob me and I shot him. He ran out the back door.
Okay, is he injured?
I think I hit him.
It didn't take long before Ricky had to get the bullet wound treated, so he went to a hospital. It was at this hospital that Ricky was arrested for attempting to rob the shop. He admitted to robbing the store, and the case was taken to the courtroom. Ricky was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and the reason he was given such a lengthy sentence was because he had pleaded guilty to 7 robberies earlier in 2016.
Did you just give me 40 years, sir? Listen, you just gave me 40 years. Well, guess what? Sir, let's say
In retaliation, Ricky pulled out bottles that contained his feces and urine, which he flung at his attorney and the officers around. He was quickly tackled and subdued by the deputies present. As a result of this action, Ricky Hand was charged with an additional 5 counts of harassment with bodily substance. He had attacked his attorney and 4 deputies with his waist. He was also charged with obstructing official business and retaliation. The fact that he had stored these bottles in his arm sling caused the judge to ask that the law enforcement agents intensify their searches before letting anyone into the courtroom next time. Get ready for another gripping installment that will leave you on the edge of your seat in our next video, Most Dangerous Females Reacting to Life Sentences.